Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we're here to give you this week's reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day, something we do every Wednesday as new comic books come out every week. And we were just talking about how this summer's been a really good reading summer. There's been so many good comic books coming out, and a lot of series that have kicked off, a lot of endings to some major story arcs that have been happening in kind of your long-running Marvel, DC titles, and now we're in kind of this season of reimagining or rebirth for both Marvel and DC. We're getting the end of Absolute Power at DC. We had the end of the X-Men Krakoan era. We're getting a whole bunch of new creative teams coming onto books. So let's jump right into it. What have we got this week?
Yeah, so speaking of X-Men, this week I've got Uncanny X-Men number 2. So picking up where last issue left off, we've got a bunch of New Mutants, not the New Mutants that you think when you hear that, showing up being like, hey, we need help. And in typical superhero fashion, before the help can happen, gotta have a little fight.
Throw down!
Yeah. Which is great because it kind of gets to spotlight a couple of the characters, like their powers, and they've got some interesting power sets.
I thought it was really cool because, it feels like, oh man, we've been doing this for, 60, 70, 80 years. How many cool character concepts and powers can we come up with anymore? But this felt really good. I liked it.
There's already like some fun interplay between some of the characters. We've got one character who's just like, doesn't seem to actually like mutants and maybe doesn't think they are a mutant, which is going to be interesting to see, like, what exactly that's about.
Yes.
We've got one of them's already kind of like got like a little repertoire going with Wolverine, just like, hey, you stink of death. So do you.
Yeah. Also, we both speak Japanese.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But so that's good. We get some flashbacks to Xavier in his younger days that like at first it's just like, okay, what's going on with this? Like what are we like setting up here? And then like by the end, you kind of start to see this is and then coupled with all that, we've got the Xavier Institute, which is now, I believe, the Grey Malkin Institute is what they're calling it.
Yeah, essentially, prisoner base of operations for capturing mutants. Yeah.
And we start to get kind of like a more idea of what exactly they're doing there. They're still it's not entirely clear what's happening, but it's definitely not good, whatever it is.
It seems not on the up and up.
No, yeah, definitely some shady stuff going on. And just the way that the three, because at a glance, the three different kind of plots going on in this issue seem very disparate from each other, but the way you start to see them dovetail.
You can tell that Simone has been doing this for quite a while and is deft at the craft. It's really feeling like we're getting really nice groundwork while having some action and really interesting back and forths right off the bat. So I've really, the X-Men, the new X-Men titles have been really solid. For me, this one is standing out as far as the team books go. And
it definitely helps. We talking about the action and the fighting there, David Marquez on art, obviously looks absolutely gorgeous.
So cool.
All the new X books have looked great. We'll get to another one in a bit here. But his stuff is just so clean. It's everything looks amazing.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's really, it's kind of, it's walking that tightrope, right? Because X-Men, particularly Uncanny X-Men, it's kind of a sacred cow inside of the Marvel universe, and people have very high expectations for it. And to be able to do something new that feels fresh while not pulling too far away from, what has been established as being kind of the core tenets of the book. Really well done. Kudos so far. The first 2 issues have been 100% for me. 5 out of 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of a book that's pretty much always been a 5 out of 5 and has only not been up here as much as it probably should be by dint of we need to give other people a chance.
Yeah, right. Expose people to new and exciting things, but has it been a year already?
It feels weird to say, but close to it, yeah.
Yeah. So I went with Transformers number 12. And so this is the end of the second story arc or trade paperback, because that's really what we're writing for, right? 5 to 6 issues to end up in a trade paperback. And we had this bridge between Earth and Cybertron. Things are looking desperate for the Autobots at the end of last issue. They had to, they've had to retreat. The Decepticons have every advantage. They're making kind of this plan to be able to counter what the Decepticons are doing, and they're feeling confident about it. But can they do that and save all of the Autobots that are in harm's way right now? And so, again, talking about kind of, the core principles or traits of a character or group of characters, and what makes them kind of who they are, even when you put them in new, interesting situations and kind of move the pieces around a lot more to make it feel fresh. Optimus Prime, right? He's kind of one of those top tier moral compass characters from the 80s. And he always does what's right no matter what. And usually that means self-sacrifice. Oh my gosh, do they put that on display in this book? And what that means for the other characters and how they perceive that. Because to somebody, they might see that as exceptionally heroic. Another person might see that as detrimental to their cause.
Like the repercussions for everyone after what happens in this issue, it's going to be a big one, especially... I'm super curious to see like how the other books, like with the new G.I. Joe stuff coming out, like how they're going to address some of the stuff that happens in this issue, because like it's a big one. Right,
yeah. So, and we've, the way that G.I. Joe has started, obviously Transformers has had stuff happening that is going to have massive ramifications with, humans and human governments and their responses to what's going on here, because they're on a scale that it's obviously not happening without notice. So it's going to be really interesting. The other really interesting part was is there something that could also be influencing Prime or starting to gain influence on Prime? Because there's a scene in there.
Yeah, something like there's been something... there's a couple somethings that are actually going on with him, because like there's been one thing that's kind of been percolating in the background of this arc that's been like, oh, okay, and like it kind of makes sense in the context of like some other stuff that's been happening, but then now something else is like also going on there, intersecting. It's just like,
yeah, and it sounds really confusing when we're trying to be as vague as we are, but it's actually very easy to follow. Really
once you get to it, it's just like oh, and it's the other characters' reactions to a lot of that stuff too, where it's just like, oh, there's even like more going on here than I think is even like apparent at first.
Yeah, absolutely. It might come down to kind of an Army of Darkness kind of moment here. So read it, because it's been so good. And we've got copies of the first trade paperback volume in stock. We'll continue to try to keep those in stock, because this has been absolutely one of the best sellers, and for a reason. I mean, we talked about this with Ultimate Spider-Man being at, what are we at, 6 or 7 or whatever issue that we were on. This is issue 12, and people are continuing to buy this and come in right away to consume it right away, because this has been so great. And Daniel Warren Johnson is just an inspired choice to read.
We've got another year. If you haven't heard, he's only planning to be on here for like 24 issues, so enjoying what we got him.
Yeah, although I have great faith in whoever it is that's going to follow up on this book, because every writer in the Energon universe has just been doing a fantastic job. So, all right, well, speaking of new writers on new books, we have got
Wolverine #1.
Yeah, so we were just looking at one of our posters from the previous volume and saying like, wow, Ben Percy did 4 years on Wolverine. That is just an epic run for any writer on any character. How do you follow that up? And
they're off to a really good start, I'll say that. Like this first issue, so we've got Saladin Ahmed on on the writing duties. If you haven't been following their Daredevil run, that's been a very big one so far. He's done a bunch of other stuff for Marvel, like some work on Miles Morales and some other books here and there. But yeah, just right away, he's killing it literally and figuratively because it's a Wolverine book. There's going to be a lot of things dying.
What? You mean the skeletons and skulls on the cover are talking about something inside?
I mean, I'd say that's I'd say that's about appropriate for amounts of bodies you do see in this comic.
Yeah,
so.
A lot of people die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and not just people.
No,
a lot of animals die in this book too. Yeah. So, kind of like what we were talking about with Uncanny X-Men and how it's hitting right out of the gate with action, but also setting up a good, strong story arc to get you going. This really balanced both of those things well. So, we spend a little bit of time kind of setting the table of where Logan is right now in his life. Kind of emotionally and spiritually and, physically where he's located and why he's there doing what he's doing. But we also introduce the antagonist and their whole motive for being there to, poke the Wolverine, so to speak. And it really gets off to a quick start. And then by the end of the story, we get, here's the larger arc that we're going to be exploring. And it's interesting. I really liked it.
One of the things I loved with this issue, it kind of harkened back to a conversation between Magneto and Sunspot a couple years ago in X-Men Red, where Magneto was just like, "Oh, I don't have it in me. Let me do that one. I don't have it in me anymore to like live this life, to like do what I have to do." And Sunspot's just like, "But you will." And there's kind of a similar beat in here where Wolverine's just like, I can't be an X-Men anymore, and Nightcrawler is just like, but you will.
Right,
your sense of duty to this stuff is like too great. Like you can't just like let people be in harm's way and not do something about it.
Right.
And it really just kind of cuts to the core of just like, yeah, he can be like this like very violent feral character. He can be like off-putting and like mean to people around him. But like end of the day, like Wolverine's going to like save your life. Like,
right, yeah. What's the difference between Wolverine and Sabretooth? Wolverine cares about people.
Yeah.
Sabretooth does not. So that, and again, that's going to keep drawing him back into it, just as it is in the Uncanny book with Wolverine also. And I feel like the consistency there in the depiction of Wolverine is really solid too. So yeah, the art is gorgeous in this. We get Nightcrawler showing up, who's always kind of, Wolverine's kind of the devil on his own shoulder, and Nightcrawler's kind of the angel on his shoulder, and so we get some of that. We get interacting with humans who let it be known that mutants are not really well received in the world again.
I love, speaking of the arc, Kokolo, he did the first arc of the Mortal 4 run, and his art on here is just amazing. In particular, I love how he does Wolverine, that it's great when artists remember that he's supposed to be this kind of like small, stocky dude. Yeah. The way he does his hair is like, I love whenever Wolverine has just like the wild hair. And it is wild here and I love it. Yeah,
it's really good. Highly recommend. We're not going to have any trouble moving any copies because Wolverine Wolverine just sells. But I'm really excited for this volume. Not to take anything away from Percy's run. It was exceptional and it was one of the longest, most storied runs on a Wolverine book. That set me up for, how's anybody going to follow that up? Well, as far as number one issues go, this was as good as I could have imagined. So, all right, well, let's do our quick recap of what would have made the wall had it not been for these, the table had it not been for these three.
Let's see, some other good picks. If you're old enough for this to be your Saturday morning, we've got new issues, both Space Ghost and Johnny Quest in this week.
Yeah.
Both of which were great. Johnny Quest in particular came to kind of explore like the strange new setting that they're in. There's some surprises in this issue that's just like, oh, okay, that like makes sense. And like there's a lot of tension, and it's going to be interesting to see like what finally kind of like breaks it all.
So who gets to read those first at your house? You or your dad? Does one of you read Space Ghost while one's reading Johnny Quest and then you flip? Or
it depends, but I can definitely tell you, as much as I'm enjoying them, he's definitely enjoying them even more.
Yeah. Well, that'll tell you something. It's good for people who are familiar with the characters, but not intimately so.
Oh yeah,
and also people who grew up with them.
It's again the thing that like the key to doing this stuff is if you can't make it like appealing to like people who don't even know what it is, then like you can't really survive in this day and age with this stuff. But the fact that like like someone who grew up watching this as a kid is enjoying it, and just any like Joe Schmo off the street can like come and grab it and she'll be like, "This is a fun story. I'm enjoying this." Like you've got a winning formula going there. Another one I'll just give a quick shout out to issue 25 of Fantastic Four. We talked about that one a bit before. Really good issue. Another fun done in one. Kind of like a twist on like a classic like Marooned on like a Strange World kind of story, and like how things go, it's definitely not how you expect, and it's I don't know, I absolutely loved it. That's my number one, would have been up here had it not been for Transformers for me. North gets the Fantastic Four so well, and sometimes it's just fun to have an issue with a story that could have happened in the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, and it just fits so well. So Fantastic Four, so Blood Hunt was the event that's wrapped up in Marvel, and it's now Doom is the new Sorcerer Supreme. And Blood Hunt was a reasonable event, like it was fun.
Yeah, it didn't shake up stuff too terribly much, but it did set the table for some interesting new stories going forward. I think that's kind of what events should be shooting for at this point, right? Of the books that kind of put their own stories on pause, spent a couple issues on Blood Hunt, and now are coming back to their own stories. I thought the Fantastic Four Blood Hunt issues were really fun.
They were very fun,
but they did put their overarching story arc on hold. And so getting back into that, because again, this is a one and done, but it also sets up what their next kind of problem that they have to solve is, right? Because that's what the Fantastic Four do. They're more problem solvers than they are heroes, really.
And you're talking about North before, like how he just like gets the characters. A thing I think that he does, and it's what a lot of good writers do, is that they clearly also have interest like outside of comics that they bring to the work.
Yes,
like, it's part of what makes Johnson's work on Transformers and a lot of his stuff work so well. Is like he brings a lot of the stuff that he enjoys, like wrestling stuff, into there. Like North is clearly someone who like loves science and all kinds of stuff about science, and just like how these like weird little things can happen. And like for a book like the Fantastic Four, where it's a bunch of science adventures, you really need someone who like actively enjoys that stuff, because he like is able to bring it and make it fun and not feel like you're reading a textbook.
Yeah, I genuinely had the thought, wow, he's so smart and this works so well. I could never read Fantastic Four because I don't know this much about science. Marvel's not going to be knocking on my door any day soon to write that. Maybe Wolverine, because I can write about being a small angry person. But
what are you talking about? I mean, angry, yes.
Yeah, sure.
He's it's very dark when the camera doesn't roll.
Oh. Well, now they know.
Yeah, now they know.
Well, so last week we teased that there was going to be a big announcement, and here it comes. Brent Schoonover, Twin Cities based illustrator, comic artist extraordinaire. If you've gone to any of the big concerts up in the Twin Cities lately, you have seen his poster and print work up there. Some great stuff from the Foo Fighters concert and Weezer and Flaming Lips, and just a whole bunch of really cool posters, as well as he's been doing the B covers for Dick Tracy issues 1 through 5 recently, but he's done work at Marvel. He's done work at DC. He did that cool Hostess retro Batman Catwoman ad thing a while back that I just loved. He was here a couple of years ago and did an event, and it was a smash success. And I know that a lot of our regulars have been picking up his variants, hoping that we would be able to get him back here again. And October 5th, right at opening, 11 a.m. Saturday, October 5th, Brent will be here. Be sure to check out his website ahead of time, order up some commissions, because he'll bring those down. He'll also be able to do some sketches and signings and talk about the industry and all of that kind of great stuff, stories that he's worked on. Devil's Highway with previously mentioned Ben Percy, who's also
friend of the show. He hasn't told us not to say that.
Yeah, restraining orders don't really mean anything, do they? Get here October 5th. It's going to be a great time. We're super excited to have Brent back. He's not just an excellent artist, he's a really good guy too. So yeah, awesome. Well, as always, we appreciate you joining us. We would really appreciate if you would like, follow, subscribe, leave comments, all of that stuff that everybody always asks you to do online. And then join us again next week, because we'll be back with more picks, because as we said at the beginning, every Wednesday they come out with more comic books. It's like they want your money or something. And
friendly reminder that we are also open on Mondays again now. Noon to 5. Feel free to stop on by.
Yeah, I'm here receiving comics, and we've got specifically Ryan and Jesse, who both are dabblers in comic books, but specifically geared towards Magic the Gathering and Pokemon and trading card game stuff. So by popular demand, open on Mondays.
Also technically by popular demand, because it's sold out. If you didn't get a copy of issue 1 of Uncanny X-Men, we do have the second printing in, so definitely grab that if you didn't get a chance before.
Yes, and more Godzilla variants.
Variants.
Tons of fun. Yeah. Well, we will be back next week, and until then, enjoy the reading. That being said, what have we got for this week?
Yeah, so my pick this week is Uncanny X-Men number 2. So, as you... Sorry, I'm sorry. Just
out of curiosity, where were you going?
I don't know.